He is Professor of Pediatrics and Honorary Secretary, Institute of Child Health, Kolkata. He is past President, West Bengal Academy of Pediatrics, immediate past Chairperson, IAP Infectious Disease Chapter, Organizing Chairperson, Redicon 2013, President, IAP East Zone Coordination Committee, Additional Organizing Secretary, National Conference, Redicon 2005. He is also Central FB member for 2 terms, convener of IAP Task Force on guidelines for diagnosis and management of malaria and tick fever, pyogenic meningitis, skin and soft tissue infections in children. He has also edited a number of books, that is MDR, multi-drug resistant infections in typhoid and tuberculosis, infectious disease in children, newer vaccines, controversies on vaccines, antibiotic update, and the IAP Color Atlas on Pediatrics, textbook of pediatrics infectious diseases. So we have a learned speaker on this important topic. We already have guidelines, that is Universal Immunization Program and IAP guidelines. So Dr. R. Kundu will enlighten more on the recent guidelines. I request Dr. R. Kundu to speak on the subject.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I bring greetings from Institute of Child Health, and my thanks goes to the chairpersons for their so kind words about me. So before going to this immunization, I'd like to tell I'll be covering 3 important newer vaccines which are available recently in the country. To start the game, let's start with rotavirus. As we all know, the rotavirus is a viral infection. It causes diarrhea, and most of the children, they suffer the disease in infancy. That means during the first month of their life. From 3 months onwards, the burden of rotavirus started increasing. And it has been seen that rotavirus is not primarily transmitted through fecally contaminated water and food. Even if you maintain good hygiene, you cannot prevent rotavirus. And another very important thing is that we don't have any medicines against rotavirus. So now if you see this carefully, 1.13 lakhs death due to rotavirus occurs annually in India. Of this first 1 year of life, it is 50%. And if you take first 2 years of life, then 75% of the diseases due to rotavirus is in early infancy and childhood. So my point is, most of the rotavirus infection occurs in first 2 to 3 years of life. And protection early in life only will ensure that we can prevent rotavirus. And if you see comparison of rotavirus morbidity across the globe, outpatient visit for each 6 patients visiting the outpatient due to diarrhea, 1 suffers from rotavirus in USA. As compared in Asia, it is 5:1. If you see hospitalization, 50 out of 1, 75 out of 1. So this is a very democratic virus regarding morbidity. But if you consider mortality, death, the death rate in our country is very high because our standard of care is not that high. So what we see, 40% of all the diarrhea diseases worldwide is caused by rotavirus. You see, it is very uniform throughout. America, Europe, all nearly 40%. So irrespective of your hygiene standard, irrespective of your hand washing and other things, you cannot prevent rotavirus. So what is the way to prevent rotavirus? The only definite way to prevent rotavirus is to give a vaccine. And as I've told you, most of the diseases occur within first 3 months or 6 months or infancy. So if you have a vaccine, which starts at 6 weeks and 2 doses completed at 10 weeks, by the time the child, when he will reach 3 months of age, he will be protected against the disease. So, and it has been seen that why there is a need for early protection. By 9 months of age, 75% of hospitalization occurs. So early protection means early prevention of the disease. And again, to reiterate that the rotavirus is highly contagious. Most of the soaps and disinfectants, it cannot kill the rotavirus, and it is highly stable. It remains infectivity for several weeks of life. And every child gets infected by 2 years of age, irrespective of the socioeconomic class. So this is a very democratic virus. Now, to see how the rotavirus causes the problem. So this is the small intestine. In small intestine, we have villi. These are villi and these are crypts. The cells lining the villi is known as enterocytes. These enterocytes, they are born in the crypts and they gradually ascend upwards. Once a mature enterocyte, which is at the tip of the villus, it does two very important functions. Number one, it absorbs sodium and water, glucose-mediated sodium transport. It absorbs sodium and water. And number two, it contains enzymes. And one of the most important enzymes the enterocyte contain is lactase. The child takes milk and the principal sugar in milk is lactose. To digest lactose, you need lactase. And what happens when the rotavirus strikes the intestine, it kills the mature enterocytes at the tips of the villi. And once the mature enterocytes at the tips of the villi are killed, the production of immature enterocytes from the crypts increases and they cover the tips of the villi. So the tip of the villi, instead of having mature enterocyte, they have immature enterocytes once the rotavirus attacks. This immature enterocytes has two very problems. One is that glucose-mediated sodium transport cannot occur. So neither salt nor water can enter the body. And number two, these immature enterocytes, they don't have the enzyme lactase. So the lactose, the principal sugar which the child is taking cannot be digested. And this lactose goes unaltered to the large gut. In the large gut, it is acted upon by the colonic bacteria and they are split to lactic acid. And this lactic acid causes further indrawing of fluid from the body, adding to diarrhea. So this is the way how the rotavirus acts. Now, as I have told you, the only way, and let's see before that, what are the implication of this diarrhea. A 3-year-old prospective study was done in children aged 0 to 5 years at several sites including Africa and Asia. And it was seen that not only rotavirus causes diarrhea, morbidity, mortality, but also it has a very important bearing that it significantly alters the length and the growth of the child. And so what happens, the rotavirus has a significant negative effect on growth and length. So a child, even if he survives from rotavirus diarrhea, ultimately the child will less in weight and less in height. So this is another implication of rotavirus. And as I've told you, the only way to prevent this rotavirus, we don't have any medicines, but by a vaccine. So to give the summary of the disease is a very democratic virus, irrespective of class and creed, it affects everybody. It's highly contagious, no matter how many times you wash your hand, you cannot prevent rotavirus. Most of the infection occurs by first 9 months of life, and almost 40% of all the diarrhea caused worldwide is due to rotavirus. Improvement in water, sanitation, hygiene is unlikely to alter the incidence of the disease. And not only it causes gross morbidity and mortality, but also it has a negative impact on the growth and height of the child. So taking these things in background, so what we need a vaccine. A vaccine which is, now I'll be talking how and why, what are the vaccines available. So if you see, there are 3 vaccines against the rotavirus is available. The first vaccine to hit the market was RotaShield in USA. This was a tetravalent vaccine, but soon after introduction of this vaccine, it was seen that the vaccine causes intersusception. And then the vaccine was withdrawn from the market by the manufacturer itself, and thereafter, next vaccine to come was RotaTeq. This is a RotaTeq vaccine, is a pentavalent vaccine. There are various serotypes of rotavirus. Of these, what they have done, they have reassorted human rotavirus with animal rotavirus, and they made a pentavalent vaccine. It is known as pentavalent vaccine. Why? What was the principle and logic behind this vaccine? The principle was why they have reassorted with animal virus. They reassorted with animal virus because animal virus won't be able to grow that much inside the human gut. So the chances of intersusception which the first vaccine had would be less with RotaTeq. So that's the reason it was reassorted. And why they have given this pentavalent? Because that serotype G1, G2, G3, G4, was responsible for 90% of the rotavirus in the Western countries. So this was the rationale of this vaccine. And it was thought during those days that this rotavirus produced homotypic protection. What do you mean by homotypic? The serotype G1 will produce antibodies which will be effective only against G1. But in the meantime, another very important thing was seen. A child if he had the first infection of rotavirus, the chances of developing diarrhea was 30 to 40%. If the child recovered, if the child develops second infection of rotavirus, the chances of having rotavirus diarrhea falls down further. And by the time the child would have third infection, there is practically no chances of having severe diarrhea. So it was seen, two natural infection of rotavirus, if the child survived, the chances of developing severe diarrhea on the third time, it was practically nil. So it was seen in the natural, even if you have a rotavirus infection by a particular strain, subsequent development of severe diarrhea after 2 or 3 attacks, even by other strain decreases. So they learned that the rotavirus not only produces homotypic protection, it produces heterotypic protection. So by heterotypic it means, even if the serotype is G1, the antibodies which the G1 serotype will protect not only against the G1 virus but other viruses, say G2, G3, G4, G9, G10 virus. So that's the reason this last Rotarix vaccine was introduced in the market, which is a monovalent vaccine. It is a vaccine, a human vaccine, but which has been attenuated. What do you mean by attenuated? You grow and regrow the virus so that you retain the immunogenicity of the virus, the power to develop antibodies, but the pathogenicity of the power to kill has been taken away. So this is an attenuated virus. It's a monovalent virus, and it produces cross protection against several serotypes. So now this monovalent virus is known as G1P8 virus. But where is the proof that this G1P8 will produce cross protection against other types? So here is so if you see the Rotatex license was there to prevention of rotavirus gastroenteritis in infants and children caused by serotypes G1, G2, G3, G4. But there are several serotypes, more than 10 serotypes of G. Whereas Rotarix indication was active immunization of infants from age of 6 weeks to prevention of gastroenteritis due to rotavirus infection, to all types of rotavirus infection. And where is the proof? So this is the proof of this rotavirus infection. The rotavirus was introduced in the Europe, where it contains only G1 serotype, but its effectivity against G2, G3, G4, G9 serotype was more than 80%. Similarly in Asia, due to non-G1, its efficacy was more than 90%. Latin America same, Africa same. So this monovalent Rotatec has a broad cross protection not only against the G1 but also other serotypes. So this was a comparison between the monovalent rotavirus and pentavalent rotavirus. So even if it is a pentavalent, the protection level in all this is comparative, and in fact a shade better by this monovalent attenuated virus. So, and the efficacy was seen right across the globe, and it was seen, let's take the point in case of Asia, the efficacy of rotavirus 3-year study was done against severe rotavirus gastroenteritis, the efficacy was 100%. Against hospitalization due to rotavirus infection was 100%. So this rotavirus vaccine is a highly efficacious vaccine. Next, the WHO position paper on 2013 regarding these vaccines have come. So who has to say? Who has to say whether, no matter whether it is monovalent or pentavalent, Rotarix or Rotatec can be given with other vaccines, particularly OPV. It was thought that if you administer 2 oral vaccines together, one might interfere with the other, but it has been seen that oral polio vaccine can be simultaneously given. It doesn't cause any interference. And so the WHO recommendation in 2013, it was WHO has recommended that rotavirus vaccine should be included in all the national immunization program in countries where there is a high incidence of rotavirus gastroenteritis associated with facility. And the vaccine Rotarix The first dose to be administered at 6 weeks, it can be given along with other vaccines, particularly DPT, and 2 dose schedule 4 weeks apart will suffice. So these are the countries which has taken up the rotavirus vaccine. So I think with this I could give you a brief idea about the rotavirus. The next important vaccine which I'd like to cover is the pneumococcal vaccine. You know, pneumococcus is one of the major causes of infective causes of death in our children. One of the major causes of under 5 mortality in our country is due to pneumococcus. There are more than 90 serotypes of pneumococcus, of which only few causes severe disease. So if you see the burden of the pneumococcus disease, most of the pneumococcus, they cause diseases in 2 ways. One is non-invasive, another is invasive. By invasive it means when the bacteria invades your bloodstream. Most of the cases are non-invasive, and most of the common infection the pneumococcus causes is otitis media. And thereafter non-invasive pneumonia. How non-invasive pneumonia is formed? Pneumococcus is normal common cell in your throat. In your throat, it doesn't cause any problem. But when your immunity decreases, for example, you have a common cold due to virus, your immunity decreases, the common cell bacteria, pneumococcus, which is inside in your throat, it now gains entry through the trachea into the lungs and causes pneumonia. And that's the reason why you won't give an antibiotic in a viral, because what you are doing, the common cells, pneumococcus, which are in the throat, you will make them resistant. So this is one way of getting pneumonia. The other way of getting pneumonia is that when the bacteria gains entry into the bloodstream, it can spread and it can cause pneumonia, it can cause very severe sepsis, and it can cause meningitis. Of this, pneumonia alone contributes a major bulk, about 40% of the deaths in under 5 children in the country. So as I was telling you, there are numerous serotypes of pneumococcus, and of which the first 10 serotypes, if you can cover, if you can give protection against the first 10 serotypes, your vaccine efficacy will be in the tune of 70%. Thereafter, as you increase the serotype, the curve gradually flattens. So you don't add much, but you add to the cost of the vaccine. So 10 serotypes is responsible for 75% of the invasive pneumococcal disease in children under 5. Adding more to the serotype, you will add cost, but the gain will be not substantial. So now, let's see, there are 2 vaccines currently available in our country. One is Synflorix, the 10-valent vaccine. Actually, the pneumococcus polysaccharide is the virulent factor, is responsible for the disease. Polysaccharide vaccine, due to various reasons, are not very much effective. So then what you have to do, you have to conjugate. That means you have to attach a protein to the polysaccharide to make the vaccine effective. And in case of Synflorix, the protein which has been added to this polysaccharide is known as non-typable Haemophilus influenzae. There is a bacteria known as non-typable Haemophilus influenzae, and that bacteria contains a protein which is known as protein D. So you conjugate this with protein D to make the vaccine. Whereas there is another vaccine which is more 13-valent vaccine, where they have used diphtheria carrier protein as a conjugate. So the basic difference between these 2 vaccines, one is 13-valent vaccine and the 10-valent vaccine, which is Synflorix, that in the 13-valent vaccine, 3 important serotypes are included. One, I'll come to that in the next slide. So this is the 13-valent vaccine. It is conjugated with protein D, it is conjugated with diphtheria protein. The difference between these 2 vaccines, the 10-valent vaccine does not contain type 3, type 6A and type 19A. So these 3 serotypes are out. Now let us see what are the contribution of type 3, type 6A and type 19A to the pneumococcus disease. So let's come to that. So these are the various studies in India and in adjoining Asian countries to see what are the major serotypes responsible for pneumococcal disease in our country. So if you see that the flow chart, Wait, I'll show you. If you see the flow chart, type 3 is not, actually you hardly see any type 3 here. Acha, 19A also you hardly see. I'll come to another big study which will show what are the contributions. So another study was known as the ASIP study was done, which was conducted all throughout the different parts of India to see what are the principal serotypes. So here what we see, what was the criteria? All children less than 5 years who comes with suspected case of pneumonia, who has not received previous antibiotic therapy, their blood was collected and it was seen what serotypes of pneumococcus was responsible for their pneumonia. And it was seen that if you see type 3, number of isolates is only 2. Type 19A, number of isolates is only 7. And 19A was only 5. So the contribution of these serotypes are very bigger. One is 3%, this is hardly 2% or 3%. So adding extra 3 types will add only to the cost, but it won't add much of the benefit. And there are other reasons also why these 3 types were taken out. It was seen, so to see the summary, the prevalence of pneumococcal serotypes in India, this 10-valent vaccine, it covers most of the major serotypes here. And it was seen that even this 10-valent vaccine does not contain 6A, but it contains 6B. 6B gives cross protection against 6A. And it has seen the 19A, that the percentage of 19A is very small. It is not increasing. So we need not worry about these 3 types. So another very important point in this vaccine, that this pneumococcal vaccine was conjugated with protein D of Haemophilus influenzae. Haemophilus influenzae is another bacteria which causes several problems. So Haemophilus influenzae is another bacteria. It also causes non-invasive otitis media, pneumonia, meningitis and sepsis. And this protein D in Haemophilus influenzae which was conjugated, they also produce antibodies and give some protection against Haemophilus influenzae. So this vaccine, this is non-invasive Haemophilus influenzae. It causes some of the non-invasive disease, particularly otitis media. And this vaccine has antibodies against to this also. So to sum up, this is a typeable Haemophilus influenzae, this is a non-typeable Haemophilus influenzae of which the protein D was taken out and included in the pneumococcal vaccine. So one of the principal cause of otitis media is Haemophilus influenzae, and if you use this pneumococcal vaccine, it gives protection against this non-typeable Haemophilus influenzae which is responsible for 31% of the otitis media. So this is a vaccine which gives dual protection. Not only it gives protection against pneumonia due to pneumococcus, but also it gives protection against acute otitis media due to non-typeable Haemophilus influenzae. So the vaccine has a dual protection. So the conclusion is Synflorix is highly immunogenic. Serotype 3 was not included in the vaccine because it elicits a different immune response, and also the percentage is very small. And serotype 6A, 6B gives cross protection, and also this vaccine is also important because it gives protection against otitis media. And the countries which have chose Synflorix over this Morocco, Palestine and thing. I think I should stop here because the time is over. But would you like to have something about cervical cancer? Shall I continue? Time is over.
Just say few
So
words.
the next important vaccine which has recently come is cervical cancer vaccine. So this cervical cancer vaccine, that every day